Welcome back to the show, and joining us in studio now, my buddy Jim Pollard. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Dave, and I hope you are too.
So far, so good, and for 2020, that's quite the statement.
Indeed. I preface everything when someone says, how you doing? Well, under the circumstances, very well.
That's all we can say. And I haven't talked to you in a while, so I just want to catch up if that's okay. How has this been during the pandemic for you and your crew at AMR?
It's required a lot of adaptations. Our folks have really risen to the occasion. They're extraordinarily diligent about infection control. They understand the seriousness of the disease, that they must protect themselves and their patients, hospital staff members, and their own families. This disease does not play.
Yeah, and now that is going to have layered on top of it our usual holiday problems. I've talked to you before a lot of holidays over the years, Jim, and every year we talk about the same things because every year the same things are a problem, it seems like.
Unfortunately, every major holiday brings a spike in certain injuries, and Thanksgiving has its own particular risks. A lot of folks like to fry the turkey, and anytime you mix hot oil and hot metal, and worst thing you can do is put a wet turkey with water into hot oil. That's going to cause flashovers like an eruption, but we still have those kinds of incidents. And I read a couple of years ago a headline that kind of shocked me that said Thanksgiving is the most dangerous holiday when you consider all of the different kinds of risks. For example, Thanksgiving is the worst day of the year for kitchen fires, which makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Right. And then think of how many folks do at least start their decorating, which involves using ladders, and a great many of us just aren't skilled at using ladders, and we kind of take for granted our ability to use a ladder safely, and other risks. It mounts up. The greatest risk by far, of course, remains the motor vehicle crash. And if more folks will please stay home this year, the CDC is recommending no travel. I know that's a tough choice, that you want to see your loved ones, but you want to see them for years to come, and you don't want to take the risk, may I say, of contributing to someone's deathly illness or potentially even demise, especially someone of higher risk.
Exactly.
An older person, someone with chronic conditions.
Well, and I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again here. My mom just turned 76 last week. Mm-hmm. Has some health issues that she deals with. I haven't been to see her physically in months, and I talked to her on the phone just a day or two ago and told her, "I'm not coming to your house, Ma. I love you to death, but I'm not setting foot in there." And that's the choice, unfortunately, some of us have to make right now.
Precisely, and I admire that, and I hope a great many folks follow your example. With elderly members of their family, and again, folks with chronic conditions.
Exactly, and we have plenty of those in Mississippi, let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely, and this is a time to take stock of all that you are grateful for, and having loved ones at all who you want to keep for quite some years to come, I hope would shape one's decisions about getting the large family together more than your own immediate household. It's dangerous, just flat out dangerous.
In so many different ways. And one of those, in the last segment, I don't know if you heard this, the weather is bad. Have one bad accident that's been reported on I-55 South down in southwest Mississippi with a car off in the trees. You guys get a lot of those calls because this is the time when travel really ramps up in the year.
Absolutely. And I think most folks would easily agree. There's more travel on the Thanksgiving weekend than any other time of the year, and unfortunately, it looks like a lot of folks aren't following the CDC's advice on staying put. And if you do take that risk, remember there's risk in getting to Grandma's house over the river and through the woods and coming back, and some common sense safety advice there. Leave early enough so that you don't have to rush. Make sure that the vehicle and the drivers are in good condition. Clearly, never any alcohol while you're driving, and everybody is buckled up. And be on the lookout, especially in rainy conditions, as we may have, for large, slow recreational vehicles, especially on hills and curves, and just generally ramp up your safe driving skills.
Now, when we talk about this being the busiest time of the year for you guys, how busy are we talking? Do you get just like a flood of calls and a flood of things that you have to go respond to?
I don't have the figures with me, but I can tell you it's busy enough. And we want to prevent every single accident, every single motor vehicle crash, just like we want to prevent the spread of any illnesses such as COVID-19. And we have a heightened sense of awareness that we may very well get the serious motor vehicle crash call, such as you mentioned down in South Mississippi. Sadly, after Thanksgiving holidays, there are always reports, even in a state with a smaller population like ours, of folks who just did not make it back home. Tragic, absolutely tragic. And, you know, we feel for the folks who lose others, and just plead that everyone who's on the road, even shopping on Black Friday, to take extra precautions. Just observe the traffic safety laws, the speed limit, and give that seatbelt an extra tug.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is a lot of times the most dangerous part of your drive is not anything you do. It's one of those other dingbats that are on the road with you.
Defensive driving, as it's called, absolutely. And it can happen anytime, anywhere. And it really, the length of the trip, the distance that you're traveling, so many crashes happen very close to home. So
what is it, like within 5 miles, I think they say?
I've heard varying distances, but it is not necessarily on the long trip. You see, the interstates, for example, are the safest highways we have. And if you're on the divided 2 lanes or on city streets, then you've got a lot more likelihood, unless there's a divided median, of a head-on crash. So, the rural roads especially can be particularly hazardous.
Well, and you have to remember you can't predict what somebody else is going to do. Stupid does not keep a schedule. So you have to always be aware of what's going on. Sorry, I had to throw that one at you, Jim.
And please put the phones away and any other kind of distraction. Just don't take the risk. There's going to be lots of folks out, all of them excited and some in a hurry to get to their destinations, maybe a little more prone to take chances, maybe a little more prone not to be paying attention as much as they should be. It is a time to keep the long view. When you get in that vehicle, the goal is to get back to where you started safely.
That's a very good point.
Without an intermediate stop at a hospital.
Oh, no, we don't want that. we don't, nothing personal, Jim. We don't want to have anything to do with you and your guys and girls during the holidays. We just don't.
Well, we say we hope you don't need us, but we're there for you 24/7 when you do.
I tell you what, we've got Jim Pollard in studio with us, AMR. When we come back, we'll talk about some more of these dangers. You mentioned decorating. We'll talk about that and some of the cooking-related injuries that can happen. It's not just burning your house down. There's other things that can happen, too, that you can avoid pretty simply if you just take the right steps. We'll continue with Jim on the JT Show next. Super Mississippi in studio with us from AMR. Jim Pollard joins us for our annual Don't Do This conversation. That's probably as good a title as any, right? Because there's a lot of things you don't need to do.
I fully agree. And let me give a shout out to all the paramedics and EMTs across the state, not just with my company, AMR. And thank you for your work, and thank you for doing your flat level best during the pandemic to protect us all.
And I have a feeling, even in non-pandemic years, especially in non-pandemic years, but I have a feeling that all of those folks and all of you guys, a lot of times when you get done with the call, you just walk away just shaking your head going, wow, that could have been avoided.
So many of the calls that we respond to are indeed preventable. And that's one reason that we reach out through outlets such as SuperTalk to convey information on keeping yourself and those you love and others safe year-round. And it's a message that you have to repeat frequently. Every season has different risks. The summer, obviously drowning increases.
Not going to be a lot of third-degree sunburns this weekend, for example.
Could be some third-degree burns from frying your turkey or a kitchen fire.
Well, and that brings up something, too, because we talk about cooking the turkey and specifically deep frying the turkey as being a huge risk, and it is. But there are a lot of risks in the kitchen when everything gets hectic for Thanksgiving and everybody's running around doing 20 things. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong there.
Oh, precisely. And it's easy to get distracted. So before you know it, you got a fire in a pan. For goodness sake, don't ever throw water on a grease fire. Make sure that you have a fire extinguisher handy. Every kitchen should have one. And make sure that the folks in the household know how to use it. Throw water on a grease fire and you'll get one of those eruptions, and it can really cause some nasty burns and lead to some major scarring after those burns have healed.
Well, when you throw water on a grease fire, you're basically making homebrew napalm.
Had never thought of that particular description, but it's similar result.
Yeah, well, the burning matter is going to fly out and stick to you.
Right,
it's napalm.
Right, precisely. And if you do have a substantial burn, some hot grease gets on you. First thing, cool it. Lots of cool, cold water on the burn site. If it does seem to be deeper than a sunburn, by all means, call 911 and get the medics there immediately. They have the skills and the supplies, the training, the equipment to help make a difference to minimize the damage of the burn, and they can get you safely to the hospital for emergency treatment.
What would you say to people that keep that aloe vera plant right next to the sink and they're ready to break off one of those big leaves and rub it on there? You still need to get medical attention, right?
If the burn is more than what appears to be a sunburn, definitely we would recommend it. I guess having a plant there beats nothing.
Yeah.
But better to be safe than sorry. Take the preventive steps to start with.
Well, a lot of people have those home remedies that they swear by, and sometimes that can lead to problems down the road if you don't get things taken care of right up front.
Right. With a burn, for example, a lot of folks want to put some ointment of some kind on it. No. Period.
Why is that?
Keep it cool, because any ointment can interfere with the natural healing processes. An ointment itself may have some contaminants in it, and it is just simply not advised.
Very good. Now, also when you're cooking, the other thing to remember, if you're going to have kids around, keep those handles turned in on the stove.
Absolutely. And I remember I've been kind of a safety monitor in my family for years, and I remember...
Oh, they love you, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I caught that bug when a fireman came to visit our school when I was in about third grade. So I go home that afternoon, and my mom's got the handles sticking out over the stove, and I just, stepped right up and said, "Mom, you need to turn these handles inside." And you know what? She began to comply with that from then on. And I guess it just hadn't been something she'd ever picked up over the years. Same story, same sequence of events. I go to the restroom after the fireman's been there, right? And I have the closet door in the restroom is open, and there's some rags and some oily type fluids, some cleaning fluids and so on together. So I go back to the teacher and I go, there's oil and there's rags together in the closet. It's like, we're all going to die. And, I think that contributed to eventually my very luckily finding my way into the field of emergency medical services.
Well, you found a love for something, and in this case, it turned out to be tattling.
Yes.
Basically. But it worked.
Or nagging. Take your pick.
Nagging, either one, but it's an important job, especially in those cases, because on Thanksgiving and during the holidays and when things are busy and hectic, even if you know these things, even if you do these things normally, you can get caught up and you can forget and not notice.
Oh, precisely. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and then kind of a little subtext, it's also one of the most dangerous times of the year. So you need to keep that radar on and highly tuned. And I especially appreciate your mentioning children because it's easy to take your eye off of the little guys. Before you know it, they get into some sort of a poison. Just for one thing, keep them out of the kitchen. That also applies to when you're frying that turkey. We recommend drawing a circle about 10 feet in diameter around the fryer and declare it a kid and pet-free zone, and make sure you have a safety monitor. Never leave the thing unattended, the fryer, and make sure somebody's always appointed to keep an eye on potential risk.
Well, and, it's one of those things that any parent is familiar with. The worst feeling in the world as a parent is you're involved in doing something. I don't care if it's reading or whatever it is, and all of a sudden it just sneaks into your awareness and you go, wait a minute, it's awfully quiet.
Oh, yeah.
What are they doing?
Oh, yeah.
And it's never good.
Precisely.
So when you have other distractions going on, it becomes twice as hard to keep up with what they're doing. So you have to keep an eye, maybe appoint like a kid wrangler.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Right. Good luck finding a volunteer. It's going to have to be an appointment.
You may have to rotate it every 15 minutes or so.
Yeah. It's not going to be an all-day job. I can assure you of that. That will lead to other problems, including getting in a situation in a state where you don't need to be driving yourself home once the day is over. So,
which does bring to mind that clearly a good bit of alcohol is consumed during the Thanksgiving holidays, and we urge folks to be. We're not anti-alcohol at AMR. We are pro responsible consumption of alcohol, but goodness sake, bear in mind, with the pandemic, alcohol, whomever you're around, or say during the Thanksgiving dinner, alcohol is going to loosen your inhibitions before you know it. You're doing the hugging and the kissing, and guess what? There's all kinds of respiratory droplets being disseminated.
Yeah, and that's not good right now.
Oh, recipe for disaster.
Well, it hasn't been good for years. We had back at the beginning of this people talking about, well, why didn't we do any of this for flu season if it's so bad? And my response was, yeah, why haven't we done any of this for flu season? It helps.
The specter of potentially a severe flu season or even a moderate flu season combined with the pandemic is...
you can go now. Just I don't even want to have this conversation, Jim.
Of great concern. If memory serves me, influenza in a typical year kills about 30,000 Americans. Mm-hmm. And in some years when we had a strain that wasn't accounted for when the virus was created months earlier, we've lost substantially more than 30,000. So if you haven't had your flu shot yet, please, your paramedics and EMTs plead with you. Go get that flu shot. It's not too late. And take every precaution you can to hold down both viruses.
And just be safe in general. That falls under that heading. But in all the ways, and that's what we've been talking about, do everything as safely as possible. And if you're putting those decorations up and the last time you were on a ladder was last Thanksgiving when you were putting the decorations up, have a spotter at least, right?
Yeah, precisely. One of the things I like to talk about is who is more susceptible to getting injured by a fall from a ladder. And the Home Safety Council reported a while back that about half of the folks were those who put the ladder on uneven ground, half reached further than they should have, a higher percentage of men, a higher percentage of older men, and about 40% fell after dark, and about 20% drank alcohol before using the ladder. So, all right, so if you fall into those categories and you haul out the ladder, wow.
I had a different answer to that question. Who's most likely to be injured in a fall from a ladder? Uncle Hank. That was my answer. Jim Pollard from AMR, we appreciate you, man, and you have a safe and a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too. Thank you.
We'll see you again soon.